Hello, this is Dave Sherwin with the Nairobi Health Show. I'm excited to do another edition of the Nairobi Health Show. As a matter of fact, I think this is number 150. But before I introduce our guest, milestone. How's that? But
Cool.
first, we got to start with the very cool professional intro we had. As long as we got an intro for video here, we might as well use it. So here we go.
Hey,
Fancy.
yeah.
Fancy, right?
Yeah, very nice.
Well, everyone, this is Dr. Skylar Pond, and him and I go way back
Everybody.
because we did an interview previously to this, and due to audio technical difficulties, it just did not ever make it to publication. And it took us a few months to get back together, but I'm so glad he was willing to redo and come back on. And Dr. Pond, before I bring you into the show, I'm going to read your bio and let people get to know a little bit about who you are, where you're coming from. Dr. Pond is an athlete, and his life took a turn towards sports medicine when he suffered a tear in his right shoulder while pursuing a passion in competitive rugby. The options posed to him were to A, get the shoulder surgically repaired, or B, stop tackling people and having fun. So he chose C, develop a demanding and experimental shoulder stabilization routine and continue to play pain-free. After his successful experiment, he was inspired to pursue a degree that would give him the opportunity to share that same level of success with others. Now he is a sports chiropractor. He currently helps the Seattle's Pro Rugby Club, the Seattle Seawolves, and the Ivan Salaverry MMA team. Mm-hmm. And so Dr. Pond is still actively involved in athletics and sports and helping athletes to work through their injuries. But he's got a lot of great info on some of us that are maybe not so competitively or professionally athletic as well. So Dr. Pond, thank you so much.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me back again. This is fun. That was so many months ago that we did this, and it was, you know what? It was just worth it for the conversation. No regrets in losing that one. So yeah, let's see if we can level up.
Now we have leveled up because now we're video. Now it's not just audio, but people can actually see you.
You have an infographic now. You have a video graphic before. I mean, we're already on another planet. Yeah.
That is legit.
Yes, it's official.
It's official. Is there anything you want to add to your story or bio before we jump in, or anything important about your background that you want to mention to people before we get into my questions?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, the bio doesn't really change. I mean, the past is the past. That's where it all began. Where that leaks into the present, I outside of lockdown restrictions and such, I still coach youth rugby. I have 2 children. You can see on my coffee mug here, all my boys. I coach their youth rugby programs here in West Seattle. Looking forward to getting that going again. With Ivan Salaverry MMA, they actually roped me in. Now I'm competing on that team as well. I do Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, both gi and no gi, and just kind of continuing to take the lessons I've learned in the past and apply them in the present, and just keep moving forward.
Have you always been an athlete since you're a little kid, or what was your upbringing like? I always like to ask the backstory because I've had very, very fit and successful people on this podcast, but the variety of backgrounds that I've had has been pretty amazing. Some who are raised with what they consider a pretty low level of health understanding, some very high. Tell us about your backstory.
Okay. Yeah, I just had to mess with the camera. I got it. That's interesting context. I was born in Lahaina, Maui. I had pretty idealistic parents. Definitely ahead of their time as far as nutrition is concerned. Everything was macrobiotic and vegetarian, and we grew up out here in Olympic Peninsula in Port Angeles, Washington. And being a family, I've got 3 brothers of kind of outliers. If you're in a logging community and you're all a bunch of, vegetarian hippies with names like Skylar and Eden and Forrest, well, you better be good at sports,
Okay.
you better bring something to the community, so if you're not going to be out there knocking down the trees with everybody else, you better win us some football games. So that was a big part of our identity, and maybe put a little chip on our shoulders, to have to perform a little bit harder and play a little bit better. And I was told many times by many physicians, many opponents, that you just can't get strong if you're a vegetarian. But it's like, well, I mean, I knocked you down all day before you told me that. But that was always kind of part of the fuel, part of the fire, part of the fun of kind of growing up a little bit differently. Was
Are
having
you still
that
a
chip on the shoulder.
vegetarian?
I do a lot of different things with my nutrition now. And I'm not really vegetarian right now. No, I did last year. Last year from January through the end of December, we did, the whole family. We did a vegetarian. Well, I called it vegetarian plus ribs, which to me means no casual meat, like no filler meals like that. If it was something special, someone prepared a rack of ribs for me, I'm not gonna walk away and have a salad. Like only special occasions. I found that my body responds extremely well to vegetarian diet. I don't lose any size, any strength, any body composition changes. If I make up my mind to get stronger and bigger while eating vegetarian, I absolutely can gain 8 pounds lean, and my back squat can go up, my deadlift can go up. I can just get a little bit more focused and have a little bit more purpose behind it. That was my experiment last year. See if I could switch to vegetarian and continue to have success in combat sports and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu.
It's interesting. I wish I could remember who said this comment and give them credit. But last year sometime I was listening to some podcast and someone said, be a vegan and eat a little meat. And I always thought that was a fascinating concept, but it sounds kind of similar to what you just said.
Yeah, I think it just kind of grounds a little bit for me. It takes a little bit of the judgment out of it. It makes it a little bit more realistic. You're not just kind of taking off one personality and putting on another. I just found that it was, I value it. I value the impact it has on the planet as a whole. The use of resources, I think, is undeniably, it's a smarter way to live, to use our resources. But I don't think it's necessary to put a bunch of judgment and snobbery into it as well. If I want to have a big crazy burger with a friend, I'll do it. But I don't need that in my daily intake of calories now.
Okay, well, we're going to jump into nutrition a little bit more in a little bit. But first of all, I love this concept of functional medicine. Like you, I had a shoulder injury years ago, and I had the same choices. I can totally relate to your story because for me, this was a 4-year story. For 4 years, I dealt with a bum shoulder, basically. Mm-hmm. And the doctor, I did do cortisone shots, which I wish I would have known better what I was doing back then. I did do cortisone. I didn't do the surgery. And now my shoulder is good. And this is a long time ago. And I'm so glad I didn't do the surgery. So to me, that choice of going natural and doing strength training and mobility was the smart choice. Now, I'm not saying it always is. It is a time for surgery, and for some cases, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not saying that everyone should always avoid surgery at all costs.
Right.
That's not the case. But in my case, with my shoulder, I'm glad I didn't have surgery. You went through that.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm in the same boat. It's my job to help people to have options. That's why people come to me. That being said, I've worked on 2 post-surgical shoulders this morning. Patients of mine that needed shoulder surgery. They exhausted the other options, or they had an acute accident. I had a bike crash, and the other one was an MMA fighter, and the labrum was just thrashed. I work with some of the best surgeons in the area. I go to a long way to make sure that happens. But it's also very important that everybody comes to my clinic has as many options as possible. If you'd like to avoid it, we know how to get you to that pathway to have most success with it. Yeah.
You've brought up something that I haven't thought of or ever shared on this podcast. I'll share it with you real quick. I noticed, and I picked up on how important it was for you to know good physicians. Mm-hmm. I had a serious injury a few years ago. As a matter of fact, I shattered my lower leg. There's metal from knee to ankle. Now, both bones, fibia, tibia, shattered. There's multiple pieces. It was a bad injury. And it took me to the emergency room. And as I was lying there, one of the nurses, he said to me, so do you have a doctor? Do you have a physician? I said, well, not a orthopedic. I don't know an orthopedic around here. Mm-hmm. And he looked at me kind of funny and he said, it's our policy to assign you the doctor on call here at the hospital if you don't have your own. Is that what you want? And he looked at me funny. And I said,
yeah. He's looking at you like, is that what you want?
That's exactly what he did, very carefully, very subtly. And I don't know. Now he was older than me. This guy looked close to retirement, and I was young enough to be a son. And I said, well, I don't know. I said, if I was your son, who would you recommend be my physician? He said, oh, I really like Dr. Wells. I think he's the best orthopedic surgeon around here for this injury. And I said, he's my doctor. He said, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yes. Yeah, that's the role. That's the role that I try to play for my people. I have those relationships with the knee and the shoulder orthos, particularly here in the Seattle area, and I know who to get them to. Yeah.
Okay. Little life lesson for those of you listening. You don't have to go with the doctor assigned to you. It's worth finding the best doctor for your situation in your area. So little life hack right there, I suppose. So let's jump into functional medicine just for a minute. So we've been kind of laying the groundwork for that in our discussion about healing shoulder naturally versus surgery and those big decisions we all have to make. But functional medicine, give us a quick definition and your thoughts on functional medicine.
Well, functional medicine can be applied different ways by different scopes of practice and different practitioners. I imagine a traditional definition of that would be kind of in our naturopathic scope of practice here in Washington, and I work with naturopaths within my clinic here. But from a nutrition standpoint, functional medicine I think of it as not being reactive. You're being proactive. You're trying to build your durability, build your strength, build your capacities. Say from a digestive standpoint, reactive medicine would be you have a stomach ulcer, you have to go in and have some medications and some procedures done. More of a functional medicine standpoint would be doing an assessment of your gut biome and having a look at what's going on in your biome of your stomach and trying to figure out, well, yeah, we know you're healthy, we know you don't have an ulcer, but what could you do to optimize your health here? What can be done? What foods can you take in, take out? Supplements can you take in, take out? Same thing from a blood panel. Like I'm like you, shamefully I don't really have a doctor. I have emergency doctors. I have orthopedic help when I need it, because when I take a blood test, it's hey, everything's okay. We don't see any cancer signs. We don't have any AIDS. No disease, no acute processes here. Yeah. If you do that with a functional medicine doctor, you'll get a totally different response. They'll say, okay, you have work that needs done. You are not optimized in your B12 levels. No, you don't have pathologic levels, but if you up to this level, you could have improved performance, improved health. Same thing with vitamin D. No, you don't have rickets. However, if you were taking 10,000 IUs a day, you could improve in this way. So you could take the same thing physically. Yes, your shoulder is not broken, but if we improve your scapular stability, you could press overhead 15 more pounds with no pain. So you could really take that simple concept of functional medicine and apply it into multiple different avenues of health, wellness, and performance. And I suppose whenever I'm thinking of that perspective, I'm thinking about building up durability, building up capacity, not waiting for the deficiency, the injury to come around, but to build up your reserves while you're ahead of the game. You can do it in a number of different ways.
One of the ways that we teach, I'm not a exercise. I mean, I exercise and I enjoy fitness, and but my certification is in nutrition. Not exercise, but a very important element of my own personal fitness is mobility, right? And it seems like the older you get, the more you appreciate mobility. If you could find a young person in their 20s who really appreciated mobility, I think they'd be doing themselves a huge favor.
Yeah. Absolutely. I have rules around my house. So my children, like I alluded to, they're 17 and 13, but they've been lifting heavy weights with me since they were 9 and 13, right? So they've been doing Olympic lifting and kettlebelling and advanced, 90% capacity lifting, but I have very strict rules for them. So after you warm up for this weightlifting as though you're already injured and you're doing rehab for this knee injury. So that's how we warm up. We're doing a knee rehab protocol, and we cool down with at least 10 minutes of static stretching. So now my little 13-year-old has just been doing this, kind of 5 minutes a leg mobility work several days a week after strength work. And now he's sitting on the ground in a straddle. He was showing off for us the other day, and he can just sit there with his face on the ground. And he has that kind of hip mobility just by chipping away at it a little bit, 5 to 10 minutes after his workouts. And it's just part of his routine. And that's going to pay off for him pretty well. you open up those hips now and they'll save your back later.
Interesting. That's a great phrase. We need to just quote that one in the show notes.
You got it. You got it. That's like yours. That. Put it on a shirt.
Yeah.
Put it on some pants. It's got to be right there over the hips.
If you start in your late 30s or 40s like I did, it takes a whole lot more work than if you've already developed it.
It fits into that functional medicine perspective, right? If I'm doing an ultrasound here in the room and we see that we've got bone spurs on a hip and we've got loss of joint space and the space is collapsing, well, if I'm going to give you mobility work now, that's pretty reactive, right? The ship has sailed. There's only so much we're going to be able to get. And it's just so much more effective if you just start before you're hurt, and create that mobility and stability pattern now. It takes so much pressure off the spine. Yeah.
Top few tips then. So most of the people listening to this probably are healthy. They probably don't have a current injury, hopefully. Mm-hmm. And so let's just say a person's generally healthy and wants to take your advice. Where do they start? What do you recommend for a person to get started to have a mobility routine? How often and what types of exercise?
I like the mobility routines. They don't have to be perfect, but a little bit of structure goes a long way. I like to think of your ball and socket joint. Your hip is probably most important if you're going to do anything. A good mobile set of hips in the acetabulum where your femur meets your pelvis takes a lot of pressure and stress off the knee, a lot of pressure and stress off the ankle and in the lower back. Kind of everything above and below a really mobile set of hips benefits. So that's where you'd want to really focus. And the way I do that myself and the way I recommend others do it, if you have any kind of a workout routine, you just close out with about, I'd say over 3 minutes on each leg. So if you're doing like a straddle stretch, hey, it could just be 5 minutes right there, hit straddle. If you're doing more of like a lizard pose, basically like a deep lunge, I kind of think of big directional patterns. So we either have a frontal or sagittal plane we'd be focusing in on. It's fun to think, well, if I just put in my 3 to 10 minutes after my workouts on this, I'm on the trajectory toward being able to do the splits. That's the trajectory. You only have to gain a degree every month or so, but if you're just working on your mobility all the time, then you'll get there. So a couple simple ways to format that. I have mobility room here in the clinic, so if I have time in between patients or whatever, I'll just drop into one of these positions for one song, and that'll do it. Anything over 2 minutes is long enough to actually create a change in tissue length when it comes to those tendinous insertions, and that's really important to keep in mind. I don't know where the rationale for stretch for 30 seconds aside really hard came from, but I don't see it supported in the literature. What's far more relevant and far more useful is just to get into about a 4 out of 10 discomfort. So you're still pretty darn comfortable. You can feel the tissues working around the hip, and camp out, sit there for at least 2 minutes. And it's okay to move around a little bit. You don't have to be a statue and stuck in that position. But if I was in like that lizard pose, I might have my hands up on my knee. I might be walking out to the side and do whatever I need to do. But just being consistent with a couple small things like that will make a tremendous difference. You'll be able to do the splits in both planes eventually if you're not already behind the 8 ball with your joints breaking down at all. I mean, of course, some people have deeper hip sockets than others, so everybody's not going to get to the same place. But I just like to focus on the trajectory, right? Your finger pointing at the moon, and that's all you have to do. Keep on track and be consistent, and opening up like that just a few days a week, even if it's just 2 days a week, you'd get there. You'd make changes. You won't just be doing the same stretch every time. You'll be doing a different stretch. You'll be getting deeper into it. You'll be getting closer into those splits. So that's the most gratifying, simplest, most effective way I've gone about working with hip mobility. Interesting. Simple directional movements held for a long time. Yes. Yeah, it's basically yin yoga. There are great apps for it. You could go to like Ramwad, like that website, and it leads you through basically 4 or 5 yin poses like that. I did that for a while, recommended it to a bunch of patients, and I realized, well, I kind of know exactly what this is. This could be a black and white handout of 12 stretches, and I'll pick up from here. But that's something I've recommended to a lot of patients over the years, just to get some momentum going, have something to follow along with. I don't know, it's under $20 a month, and if you can just do that for a few months and get a pattern established and learn what you like and what you don't like, it's money well spent. And that's something
an app store, something you put on your mobile device, or just get it from their website, or what is it?
I haven't downloaded it recently. It was just on their website. Yeah, you just go to ROMWAD and you follow along through. Yeah, and it's just a daily. They have either like a 19-minute or a 12-minute, and it's kind of fun. It's really tailored, marketed hard the CrossFit community. So you've got these beefcakes stretching out with like barbells loaded down with 400 pounds in the background and chains hanging from them and chalk everywhere, and no one ever touches any of those props. They're just there to make you feel okay about stretching. It's kind of like it's like a bro-friendly atmosphere for mobility. Yeah.
Okay. ROM?
WOD. Yeah, range of motion, workout of the day.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Let's move on to let's see. I want to jump into nutrition, but I got one more for you on exercise and biomechanics before we move on.
Yes.
One of the things I've been learning through just personal experiences as I get older is the value of daily movement. Back in the 90s, I was a 3 workout a week guy, and that was what was commonly believed, is if you exercised 3 times a week, boy, you'd be just golden. You'd be a fit person, right?
Yeah.
We all believed that. And still to this day, I hear people talk about 3 times a week. But the fact is that as we age, we tend to get less and less mobile. And then there comes a day, if we've really done a bad job, where we might be in a wheelchair as we spend so much of our life sitting, hunched forward over keyboards, shoulders rotated forward, neck forward. And we just never kind of break out of that. And so really, I'm trying to do something 7 days a week. I'm trying to stand every hour. Apple's done an amazing job with their watch, Fitbit. There's a variety of great tools that help us with this. Hey, it's time to stand. Those are all great things. So we've shifted from what I can see in the whole fitness community, 3 times a week to be a fit person to, if you want to have great longevity, if you want to be golfing in your 80s, if you want to be active till it's over, then you've got to be doing something every single day. Thoughts on that?
Well, sure. You're describing an active lifestyle. So, and that's different from just checking the box and doing the bare minimum to maintain strength. I think you hit the nail on the head on how critical that is. Especially as you grow older, our bodies are what we use for freedom. It's what gives us our access to experience anything we want: walk, run, play, roll, dance, jump. But as we get older, our bodies will become a solitary confinement prison cell if we allow it to do so. It's a material that wants to shrink, right? You could think of it like those walls that close in Star Wars. They're always kind of coming in at you, and whenever you take your hands off those walls, they're going to creep in on you a little bit. So the active lifestyle is how you maintain that mobility in that space. I have that constant reminder here. I have the Brookdale retirement senior living assisted living facility that I'm the ground floor, I'm the retail space of, and I have that whole community. And we see the athletes going out on the sidewalk in front of us, and they're just scooting along on the scooter, And it's just a great reminder that what we do today will either feed to our freedom in the future, or it will take away, or our body's either going to imprison us or liberate us. And maintain that everyday active lifestyle that's your key to liberation. That's your freedom. So I'm glad that you emphasize that with your community. It doesn't have to be the same every day. I kind of think of it like active recovery. It's not maxing out tissues every day. I only lift heavy a couple days a week anymore. And I do a lot of functional movement. I do a lot of it's not the same as it used to be. Jiu-jitsu community is not the same as it used to be. Going into the gym and fighting 15 of your best friends. But if you get your little pod, kind of like your one person you're exposed to, you guys are all careful, and you have your one little sparring buddy. I definitely take advantage of that. I'm lucky enough that I have a patient base that's a bunch of fighters. So if somebody's already in my bubble, I'm already hands on with them, then all right, we can meet up at my place and we can fight on the side, But I'll work that in. That's a training day for me now, and it wasn't. Used to be I had to be lifting weights and training for CrossFit games 7 days a week, or else I was a bit of a head case. But now it's far more about diversity, and it's about every day, even if it's just some mobility work. It has to be done every day.
Yeah. Cool. That's where I'm at as well. And that's what I'm recommending to people. So those of you listening, if you're not doing something daily, look, even if it's just a walk, right? I mean, what do you think about just walking? I mean, or some of the most basic exercise, simple yoga.
Yeah. Well, the fact is you are doing something to change your body every day. The question is if you're doing something that's going to change your body in the way that you like or not, right? So taking a day and committing it to your work and staying, a lot of my patients are working from home on laptops now, and it's really difficult on their bodies. There's a bit of a pandemic of upper back pain going around through West Seattle. So you're doing something that's changing your body by not taking the time to do something more beneficial. Getting out and working cardiovascular strength is, I think there's never been a time where working cardio is more critically important than right now. I would love to see some data on the effects of COVID-19 on the cardiovascularly fit patient. We have our vague ideas about athleticism, but I think there's something to it that needs to be explored more thoroughly, specifically about cardiovascular capacity and people who are out there breathing in tremendous amount of tidal volume of your atmosphere. And guess what? There are viruses in your atmosphere. I'm not claiming anything. I'm not overreaching here and saying this is the new vaccine, but there's an element of that being exposed to your environment and having your body react to your environment, building your antibodies to your environment. It's a very smart thing to do right now. And I definitely have my family running hard right now, and we're keeping time, and we're racing, and we're trying to beat our times on 5-mile runs and things of that nature. And I think it's a critical thing to do for your overall health specifically now.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Next topic, intermittent fasting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan. You're a big fan.
How do you structure yours?
I do a 16-8, very simple.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah,
I eat in an 8-hour window.
Yeah, that one works very well for me as well. For one thing, it's just convenience. I mean, I've been training at 6 a.m. for a decade, and the last thing I want to do is make an omelet at 6 a.m. It's just not going to happen. I go straight from training, whether it's jiu-jitsu or weight training or running or what have you, quick shower, and I see patients at 8 a.m. And so it sure is a matter of convenience for me. I prefer that a 16-8 split window. But especially when we're looking at regenerative capacity, there's great data out there. That first published in 2017 that was looking at your regenerative capacity when you're taking advantage of intermittent fasting windows, and that whole concept of basically culling the herd. When your body, we used to avoid this all the way through the 90s and early 2000s. It was you had to have 7 meals a day, and you don't want to go into a phase where your body's breaking down your own proteins, right? You're not going to get those gains.
Right.
And the big in nutrition's like this: we learn, we grow, we change our minds. But what the research pointed out then was that you don't just arbitrarily digest your own proteins. The way that phagocytic activity happens within your body is similar to hunting in the real world, where it's your weaker, older, less useful cells that your body's going to break down for fuel, and that just opens up capacity for healing, for regeneration, and we take advantage of that. I encourage, especially, we do some regenerative medicine here, everything from PRP to amniotic fluid to Wharton's jelly and all that stuff. If we're trying to repair a joint, we bring out all the stops, and if someone's going to go down that road with me, I want to make sure I stack the deck in their favor, and we make sure that they at least have the information. They know how to structure an intermittent fasting if they'd like to, because it seems to be one of the factors that determines if you're one of these heavy high responders that we can just salvage a broken joint, or someone who has more of a mild response. Your regenerative capacity needs to be available to you. You need to have a healthy stomach lining, and you need to have that downtime between meals. And it's all extremely helpful for joint repair and tissue regeneration.
Yeah. So a couple questions for you. One, fasting has different connotations to different people. For example, I've had multiple people in my own group where I talk about fasting, And some of them come from a background where they did religious fasting, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned to have to be really careful, because some people think that fasting is going without food or water for that entire time, for example. And so we've had to teach people, no, fasting, you got to drink. You still drink with plenty of water during this time. But also, in addition, I take some of my supplements, those that do well without food, during my fasting window. And I also take electrolytes, and I take salt in my water as I'm exercising. Would you talk to that and any other things that you advise people do ingest during their fasting window?
Yeah, there are a number of different styles, like the old school fasting, like the master cleanse, where they're doing kind of like lemonade complexes with it, with sugar and honey and lemon and things of that nature. I do encourage my patient base to experiment a little bit. Some people like the effect they get out of going pretty aggressive once a week. They'll do a true hard fast once a week, and that's not for everybody. That's not for everybody. I prefer more of the accessible approach that you're describing. Some people, it's a deal breaker if they can't have coffee in the morning. It's like, well, how am I going to operate like this? Well, we just try to go to a black coffee, things of that nature.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah. But yeah, some of the people who I've seen who really go off the deep end with this, they're doing it because they're getting such great results. Like their joints are just turning around, and they're in a positive feedback loop in the way they go. But that's not how high I set the bar. I keep it very simple and accessible, a lot like you do. I go with the 8 hour feeding window, and I'll basically, if you just kick your breakfast back to 11 a.m., pretty much everybody's there, right? That's pretty much the name of the game. And it's so simple. You don't even have to tell them it's intermittent fasting. You can just simply say, eat a late breakfast, early lunch, and they'll pretty much fill in the blanks themselves. Yeah.
I'll tell you the biggest key for me. I have a sweet tooth. Okay. I love treats. I like chocolate, and I haven't eliminated that from my life. I've just cut it way back. But what I found is that like everyone else, I mean, we tend to be tempted by sweets late in the day. Like in the morning, if someone put a donut and orange juice in front of me for breakfast, it would make me want to throw up. But put the same donut
me right back to bed. Like I'd have that glucose spike, and that's it. That's not fuel for me. Yeah.
Me neither. But if someone shows me that donut after dinner, I'm much more tempted. And so what I found for myself, and for many of my clients too, is that hard stop after dinner, eat a healthy dinner and stop eating. What they're eliminating from their diet that they would have eaten is half of the magic of intermittent fasting, in my opinion. For many people, stopping eating at 6 or 7 p.m. at night is part of the magic.
That's a really good point. Yeah, you're not even having to guide them qualitatively. That just kind of addresses itself. If someone's going to pop open a bag of Cheetos, it's probably going to be at 11 at night.
That's right. That's
a really good point. I hadn't thought about that. I love that sort of thing where you kind of let people make up their own rules and they fall into what you were hoping they would. The opposite is true. Like with a paleo diet, you never tell someone how much to eat, but they always eat a little bit less because it's for the same reason. It's not, you don't have that convenient pop open a bag of Cheetos kind of a situation. And the caloric intake ends up going down.
Right. Yeah. Interesting point. It's like the Canadian strength trainer, Craig Bongelli, was on my show last year. And I'll never forget this line. It's one of the best lines I've ever heard in health. He said, "No one craves broccoli at 9 o'clock at night." And that is absolutely true. If you just think about what do people crave after dinner?
I haven't been through Taco Bell in a while, but I don't think they have that on the 24-hour drive-through menu.
No. And
no,
so
probably not.
That's a huge part of it. Well, listen, I've kept you a long time, but I want to cover just one more thing. You've mentioned your children a couple times, and I'm sure there's lots of parents listening in. And one of the things we're working on in our society is healthier children, right? The government is struggling with healthier menus and has been for a few years. And overall, we see childhood obesity at all-time highs. And there's just a lot of problems with kids. I love how you talk so passionately about your children's health and their fitness and their goals and the fact that they lift hard and they do mobility. Talk to the parents out there about things they can do to have healthy kids.
Well, you have a lot of great opportunities. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit. Their current situation is one that's desperately unhealthy, right? I mean, there used to be the notion that screen time was something to be limited in the house. Remember that? It was only a year ago, but now screen time is their life. You know, if they're not on the screen, you're going to get a call from the principal that they skipped class, right?
Right.
You can't go wrong. These kids need so much help, and they need so much guidance, and they need to be challenged so hard. Something I'm excited about. It starts from the mental space, and then it goes into the physical space. It's very difficult to do things that are challenging if you're lacking a little bit of self-worth, if you're filled with self-doubt, if you're isolated, if you're a little depressed. And there's an epidemic of that going on right now among the youth. We've had a couple middle school aged kids here in West Seattle commit suicide this year. Wow. Kids are isolated, they're hurting, they need everything they can get. They need to feel really loved, really secure. They need to feel really challenged. They need to feel that there's a big, difficult, exciting, dangerous world for them to go out there and take control over, right? These children aren't made to hide, but that's what they're doing. One thing that my wife and I did, I surprised my whole family with a meditation training for a Christmas present. So we did transcendental meditation, just because listening to a lot of podcasts, it seems like if you're talking to some guy who's been meditating for 30 years, a lot of the time it's this TM technique. So we got them going with that, and it's been going for a few weeks now. My kids they're just doing it. They wake up, they meditate in the morning, before dinner they meditate again. They're getting about an hour in a day when it's all said and done, wow. They're getting like 5+ hours in a week, and they enjoy it, and they're taking ownership of their mental space, and they're kind of seeing what's their thought and what's really kind of the community's thought, and getting a little bit of space there. I think setting that framework and that groundwork has been a huge tool for the health of my kids. And of course, just making sure that they feel loved, supported, challenged, and empowered to take on challenges and scary risks. And children really need that right now, right? They cannot stay home and stay safe healthily, not right. For long. Right. They need to be challenged. They need to be empowered to take on difficult challenges. As far as the other elements of physicality, like I said, I'm pretty assertive with my physicality with my family, because I'm their home strength coach. I get to work with them one-on-one directly, and that's something that I would encourage any parent to do. If you have the ability, if you have the background, if you have a skill, a physical skill, do your best to share it with your child and see if you can get them on your level. For me, I was really into competing in CrossFit and kettlebelling when my kids were at that perfect age. I wanted to introduce this, so now they're proficient in Olympic lifting and kettlebelling and all of this. And we go very, very heavy. But I know better than to recommend that for everybody. I've worked with my youth rugby teams, and when I tell them to do what my kids are doing, it's not safe. It doesn't work. Right. We kind of glorify the movement patterns of a child. Like, kids move perfectly. If it wasn't for these laptops and whatever, CNN, then they'd have a perfect squat. It's not true. Ask a child to squat down and show you what a squat looks like. It's not good. It's quite bad. The knees collapse together, the back rounds, the foot falls. Because they don't have any reason. They don't have any guardrails. If I squat like a healthy 9-year-old squats, everything in my body hurts, right? Yeah. It's a terrible way to move. Hurts my knees, my back, and my neck. But their joints are made of sunshine and smiles, and it doesn't matter how they move. They're still going to feel the same. They don't have that cue, that feedback. So getting children going, even if they're not going to go heavy weightlifting, it's really, really advantageous. It's important to get a child to move as though they are a heavy weightlifter, as though they're a power lifter. That way they're saving up the capacity, right? If they're moving in a way where it would be safe to squat down and pick up 700 pounds on a deadlift, then they're more efficient through all their movements going forward. And you're setting them in the pathway of sparing the joints and moving in a more efficient manner. So whether you're going to go off the deep end as I have, or you're going to stay in the shallow zone, teaching an optimal movement pattern is a wonderful gift to give to your children. They should know how to back squat, front squat, deadlift, overhead press, how to breathe, how to lock in. It's a lifelong tool, lifelong gift that will diminish the needs for seeing guys like me in the future. You know,
I love it.
You'll have to come see me when you're looking for performance enhancement. Yeah.
Okay. Well, speaking of which, how do people learn more about you? Have you got a website, social media? What have you got?
Sure. I've got all the stuff. If you're going to go to my social media, you're pretty much just going to see me and my kids being goofballs, jumping in water and whatever. And you'll see me ranting and raging about how schools should be open in Seattle. So if you want to deal with that, come find me on social media. Heavyweight Spine Straight is me on Instagram. Strength as Medicine is the clinic's Instagram. Skylar Pond on Facebook. My clinic's name is Sports Medicine Northwest. So we abbreviate that down. You can look at that. I've got that domain as well, but sportsmednw.com. That's where you can get a look at all the therapies that we do and get a look at the clinic and the bios of the staff and all that stuff. And yeah, usually I invite people. You can go ahead and send me an email if you have a question about anything we were just talking about. You want to have a quick exchange. It doesn't take a lot of bandwidth for me. I'll be happy. I always get back to folks. So you can just go to the info at SportsMed right there on the website. Shoot over a question to me. I'll be happy to kind of give you my 2 cents. And if you're looking to follow through on something like this, hey, I'd like to learn how to squat so I can share with my kids. I'll help you out with that. I'll get on the Googles and direct you to a good practitioner in your area who can get you going. I usually go with a clinical athlete for that. That's a network that I'm part of physical therapists and chiropractors and people who are doing a lot of the research and the heavy lifting on movement therapy and how to do it well, what to avoid. So yeah,
clinicalathlete.com.
Clinical Athlete. Yeah. And it has a directory map on there. It is a wonderful rabbit hole. You have some good, smart researchers just lobbing conversations back and forth at each other. It's a whole education. Just go into one of those threads and watch people explore exercise science and youth and strength and conditioning. It's a treasure trove.
Wonderful.
But yeah, I'd be happy to direct your folks to that world or however I could be helpful. Happy to help.
Well, this has been a great conversation. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Hey, I'm glad we gave it another shot.
Yeah, me too. And
don't lose this one.
Yeah. Hey, this one is right now on YouTube. You can go watch it right now. And so
you know what? I'll do it again. Go ahead and lose it. I'll see you next week.
We'll do another one.
Sounds good.
I'll probably want you back in a year or so anyway.
Yeah. We'll do a 2.0.
We'll have more stuff to talk about. Well,
yeah.
Dr. Skylar Pond, thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure, Dave.
And those of you listening, this is Dave Sherwin wishing you health and success.